This video is sponsored by you. Links to support the channel are in the description along with the Discord server. Okay, sorry, Ela doesn't suck. She's actually one of only 2 good collab units we have currently, as we're gonna discuss later. Marcille, on the other hand, we're gonna get to Marcille, don't you worry. Hello there, Arknights' most hated YouTuber here, once again turning that smile upside down and whining about some operators. With the Laios in Dungeons collab releasing and the second R6S collab for N, I am sure all of us noticed something with our big wet eyes. Something's up with collab units. At this point, it's not a coincidence anymore that almost every collab unit turns out to be designed so strangely it feels like they're April Fool's operators. There is something about collab units in this game that tends to make them dog water in actual gameplay, so what is it exactly? Looking over all of them, the only ones I could actually call viable or good operators are Ela and Yato alter. The common through line among everyone else is that they get a little too silly and quirky. Be it the R6S operators with their limited uses and conditional activations, or the delicious in dungeon operators with their extremely perplexing mana and charging systems. It's a problem of adaptation. For the sake of fidelity to the source material and attempting to adapt the gameplay/magic systems of the original series, we end up with these Frankenstein's monsters of trying to fit squares in triangle holes. This is reflected in Ela and Yato alter as well. Monster Hunter as a series didn't have much to adapt at all. It really is just beating monsters with a big stick. Yes, they could have implemented the Clutch Claw from Ward or the Wire Bugs from Rise, but ultimately all you needed to do was adapt the weapon movesets, which in practice is just how the animations of the attacks look. The same goes for Ela. Her Rainbow Six Siege kit already lends itself to the Trapmaster playstyle. The template was already there to use. So, is the solution to just toss fidelity to the wind and make collab operators akin to Ray or Wisadel? No, of course not. The entire point of having a collab unit in your game is to pay homage to the source material. It's also fan service for the fans. God knows I was ejaculating profusely upon seeing the Helmbreaker in a Noir Corne Alter's kit. If we were to remove fidelity completely, we'd get VIVIANA. Not a collab unit, but still a prime example of why removing fidelity to established material isn't very poggers. VIVIANA's biggest crime isn't that she sucks, it's that she doesn't feel like the VIVIANA we knew. You can replace her with anybody, any one random NPC, and the kit wouldn't feel any less at home. When designing a collab operator, you want them to have a kit that feels uniquely theirs while referencing the original series. If we remove fidelity entirely, we get VIVIANA, but if we're too accurate to the source material and fail to adapt it properly, we get Marcille. Seriously, what the f happened here? Marcille Skill 3 is much like a Lovecraftian creature, in the way that the more you try to comprehend it, the more you are dragged into a deep abyss without escape. Your mind fragmenting, your thoughts reflecting the experience of being lost in a maze of mirrors, as you try to understand how the Lord above could allow something like this to exist in his sacred kingdom. Marcille Skill tree is the ultimate evidence that God is either powerless to alter his own universe or ignorant of the horrors happening within it. This might actually be the worst designed skill in the game. Not the worst skill, Attack Up Gamma still exists, but the worst designed. First off, it works with the mana system, and Marcille has no way to regenerate mana on her own. Without Senshi, she can only use this thing once per deployment. Let me remind you, she's an AoE caster, aka she costs a lot of DP, and that will just keep increasing with each deployment. Beyond the fact that having to retreat her every time you want to use the skill is already atrocious on its own. Yes, you can also use a far weaker version of this that doesn't consume all mana 10 times per deployment, but at that point you're genuinely better off using Leonheart. Next, her stun range is bigger than her actual damaging range. This means she will stun people outside of her range. She got the Dusk Skill 3 special, where the skill actively shoots itself in the foot by having enemies outside of it. But with Dusk, you can at least retreat the Inkling. With Marcille, the enemies are stunned now. You can't unstun the enemies. In addition to all that, she also has a chanting time of 10 seconds, just kinda not doing anything. They saw Gummy skill 2 and said, yeah, let's do that like 5 times this event. So this skill doesn't do anything for 10 seconds, has really subpar damage, stuns enemies outside of its own range, and can only be used once per deployment. I could not design a worse skill if I tried. Though this is just about skill 3, not Marcille as a whole. Thankfully, skill 2 exists, which is quite decent and has infinite duration. So Marcille herself isn't a bad operator, but rather gets the coveted title of slightly above average. I guess we're gonna have to wait a little longer for that AoE caster redemption unit. Like many things in life, there is a middle ground to fall into. Some people in the comments of the Ela review actually said they prefer when collab units are goofy and overly accurate to the source material. And that's a good point. It's what makes them unique, it's what makes them stand out, and a collab unit should very much stand out from the rest of the cast. We wouldn't want every operator to be a new Wisadel or a new Sutra. But surely we can be faithful to the source material and goofy without completely gutting the operator's performance. Being a good homage to the original series and a good operator aren't mutually exclusive, as Ela and Yato prove. So let's cosplay Bob the Builder real quick and fix Marcille. After all, I can fix her. Her immediate and most glaring issue is that she can't recover mana on her own. I looked on the wiki and apparently mana replenishes on its own, albeit slowly. I can see why they didn't do this in the game, as it would make the mana system really OP and outclass SP in every way. So let's look for something else. You can also replenish mana by eating food with a lot of magical energy. So let's say when Marcille runs out of mana, you can still activate the skill. However, when you do, you will instead dump all your current DP into her, and she'll play a little animation of eating some food. Then she'll regain mana equal to the DP you spend. This keeps the mana mechanic as is, makes it so she can actually recover it, and doesn't completely power creep SP while still being a nod to the source material. Since Marcille carries 80 mana, you're gonna need 80 DP to fully replenish her. For skill 3 in particular, this will sound really obvious, but make the stun range equal to the damaging range, and increase the actual DPS dealt. Also, make all chanting times far quicker, at most 3 seconds. So that's how you'd go about fixing collab units. Strike the middle ground between viability and fidelity, like how Ela and Yato Alter did it. As a completely Monster Hunter addicted loser, I can tell you a lot of mechanics from the games were ignored. Things like sharpness, or stamina, or the clutch claw, or wire bugs. And I'm glad. Can you imagine if Yato or Noir had to resharpen their weapons once in a while? Can you imagine if they somehow ham-fisted the clutch claw in here? It already sucks enough in World. This thing is f***ing atrocious. I don't want it in Arknights. Ela's mines can't actually be regained in Rainbow Six Siege. She gets 3 and that's that. But can you imagine if that was the case in Arknights too? Of course they took the creative liberty and allowed her to replenish her mines. Even with these concessions, Yato and Ela are still very faithful to the original materials. So, it can definitely be done, and they've done it before. Hypergriff just fumbled the Delicious in Dungeon units through poor adaptation. It feels like they went at this backwards, starting with the Delicious in Dungeon magic system and trying to somehow shove it into Arknights gameplay mechanics, when really they should have done the opposite. Start with an Arknights archetype and then adapt it to fit the collab character. Though this is just a speculation on my end. And that's all. Max out your Gummy. Bye. Hello, welcome to the outro. This is where the video ends, fortunately. Thank you for watching, super thank you to the members and Patreons on screen now, and super duper thank you to Quill Damage, Matthew Nemo, Zephyrinix, The Crazy Lord, Nubpo, Lord Takeo, Andre Mula, Mike Reguera, New Takoyaki, Good Old Leon, Maxio Says, and Cromchan but JJF. That's all. Now I will go goon to Gummy and or porn. Bye.